Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's City Council meeting and Committee of the Whole meeting. I proudly call the City Council meeting to order, and I kindly ask our City Clerk to please take the roll call.
Bruno's not here. Burkhart?
Here.
Ruby?
Here.
Caven?
Here.
Kilberg?
Here.
Kasserag?
Here.
Malaja?
Here.
Marks is out. Mayor? Swanson?
Mayor here.
Swanson here. We begin tonight's City Council meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'd like to ask Alderman Craig Maladra to please lead us in the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ladies and gentlemen, I asked Alderman Maladra to lead us in the pledge for two very important reasons. Well, one of it's not really important, but it's a little bit of history nevertheless. Actually, there's three reasons. For those of you old enough to remember, 40 years ago yesterday, MTV started. How depressing is that? Well, you don't remember, Alderwoman Burkhart. You weren't even...
I remember.
Do you remember? Okay.
No.
And 5 years after MTV started, guess what happened? Alderman Craig Maladra began his career at Northern Trust. And this past Saturday, Alderman Maladra retired from Northern Trust after a 35-year of distinguished service. So if you look at Alderman Maladra and think, my God, he looks lighter, he looks happier, he's not certain what to do next. And of course, prior to that retirement, in fact, about 6 days, Alderman Maladra celebrated his birthday on the 26th of July. So it's a big week for Craig. Congratulations on your retirement. I understand Karen has been filling out applications for you at a number of locations.
Yeah, she's glad I'm here.
Yeah. Well, we're proud of you. Congratulations. Item A, ladies and gentlemen, under Section 3, to consider Mayor's appointment of Jewel Jensen to the Historic Preservation Commission. Is there a motion? Alderman Swanson makes the motion.
Second.
Seconded by, that was Alderman Maladra. Any questions or comments? If I sent you 2 emails today, I do apologize. The one didn't go through, and I don't know what's going on, so. A voice vote would be sufficient, ladies and gentlemen. All in favor of appointing Jewel Jensen to the Historic Preservation Commission, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Thank you, Alderwoman, or Alderman Mayor. Item B is to consider Mayor's appointment of City Treasurer Jennifer Maluski to the Fire, Pension, and Police Pension Boards. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Alderwoman Burkhart makes the motion. Alderman Caven makes the second. I should have handled this issue when we appointed Jennifer to the treasurer's post, but that was simply a error on my part. As all of you know, the position of treasurer is automatically assigned to the pension boards. So while we could have taken care of that originally, my bad. So, any questions or comments? A voice vote is sufficient. All in favor of appointing Jennifer Maluski to the Police, Pension, and Fire Pension Boards, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Thank you, Alderman Mayor. Item 4, amendments to the agenda. Are there any amendments this evening? Item 5 is the Omnibus agenda. All items marked with an asterisk are considered to be routine by this council and can be considered and voted upon with one motion. Is there such a motion? Alderman Swanson makes that motion.
Second.
Alderwoman Burkhart makes the second. Any questions or comments? Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Burkhart?
Aye.
Ruby?
Aye.
Caven?
Aye.
Kilberg? Aye. Kasserag?
Aye.
Malaja?
Aye.
Mayor?
Mayor, aye.
Swanson?
Aye. With a vote of 8 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 2 absent, the omnibus agenda has been adopted, and all matters related thereto have been approved. Item number 10, municipal bills for payment. We kindly ask our city clerk to please share in their aggregate bills to be paid.
Total bills are $1,597,457.49.
I don't know what we do, Bruno's gone, so it's like,
I'll try it. Mr. Mayor, I move that we pay the bills as read. The exact items that add up to those amounts can be found on the website in the city's packet for this meeting.
are you reading from a script?
No.
Well
I
done.
turned it around a little.
Well, there is a motion by Alderwoman Burghardt to pay the bills as presented, which are available online and in the council members' packets. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Kasserag. Any questions? Mr. Clerk, whenever you're ready, sir.
Ruby,
Aye.
Caven,
Aye.
Kilberg,
Aye.
Kasserag,
Aye.
Maladra,
Aye.
Mayor,
Mayor, aye.
Swanson,
Aye.
Burkhart.
Aye.
With a vote of 8 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 2 absent, the bills as presented have been approved and will be paid. Item 11, Committee of the Whole, items of business. 11A, approve resolution number 2021-63, authorizing execution of a professional services agreement with Stanley Consultants for a hosting capacity analysis in an amount not to exceed $39,700. Is there a motion to put this on the floor?
So moved.
Alderman Kasserag makes that motion. Seconded by Alderman Maladra. Stephanie, anything else you'd like to add prior to consideration?
No, sir.
Okay. Any questions, any comments? Alderman Swanson, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. During the Committee of the Whole meeting 2 weeks ago, I was against this agreement because there was a lack of detail as to the budget that has been added to the packet. I appreciate that. I did note that the final cost of the project will be based on actual hours, which means that it could be less, given that it's a not-to-exceed contract. So I am hopeful that it will actually come in at a lower amount. I do think for all of these agreements, for consulting agreements, we should ask for a detailed budget before we approve them. So thank you, and I appreciate it being added at this point.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? We have a motion, we have a second, a roll call vote is in order. Mr. Clerk, whenever you're ready, sir.
Caven,
Aye.
Kilberg,
Aye.
Kasserag,
Aye.
Maladra,
Aye.
Mayor,
Mayor, aye.
Swanson,
Aye.
Burkhart,
Aye.
Ruby.
Aye.
With a vote of 8 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 2 absent, item 11A has been approved. Ladies and gentlemen, just so the council members are aware, our YouTube channel is currently experiencing difficulties. However, and if on chance you receive a query from somebody in your ward or elsewhere in the city, if those interested in tuning into the meeting and watching the proceedings, they can click on the agenda link or the link on the agenda, or they can also hop on the live stream.
Well, no, the live stream is down, but
Excuse
they'll
me.
see it later this week.
They'll see it later this week, forgive me. That was why Stephanie was whispering, so. Item 11B, folks, that's been approved, forgive me, sorry about that. We're at 12A, look at that. Good Lord. Forgive me, 12A, ladies and gentlemen, consider approval of ordinance number 2021-12, granting variations from section 11-6E-4 to reduce the street yard parking setback and to increase the lot coverage related to the proposed expansion of the Malone Funeral Home parking lot at 324 and 314 East State Street. Is there a motion to put this on the floor?
So moved.
Alderwoman Burkhart? Seconded by Alderwoman Ruby. Ms. Dawkins, some prelude comments?
Sure, I would note that items 12A and 12B are related, so I'm just going to do one introduction for both, but you will be taking two separate actions.
Got it.
So the applicant, Dennis Malone, owns the properties located at 314 and 324 East State Street. The property located at 324 East State Street is the Malone Funeral Home, and the property located at 314 East State Street is a vacated single-family residence that the applicant is seeking to remove and expand the existing funeral home parking lot. In addition, the applicant is requesting a special use to continue operating the funeral home at its current location in the B3E Business District. The applicant is requesting 2 variations to accommodate the proposal as presented. The first variation sought is to reduce the side yard parking setback from 30 feet to 8.5 feet, and the second is to increase the lot coverage from 70% to 74.5%. The applicant is also requesting relief from the East State Street Corridor Design Guidelines, which encourage ornamental parking lot lights for commercial developments along the East State Street Corridor. The applicant has existing parking lot lighting that does not match the lighting standards and desires to have new lighting match the existing non-conforming lighting. And lastly, the applicant is requesting relief to decrease the amount of the interior parking lot landscaping from 10% of the parking lot area to 4.3%. At the Plan and Zoning Commission meeting on July 22nd, 2021, the commission unanimously recommended approval of the request as presented with conditional relief from the East State Street Corridor Design Guidelines parking lot lighting standards. Specifically, the commission requested that the lighting fixtures closest to State Street conform to the East State Street Design Guidelines, and that a revised photometric plan be submitted to the Community Development Department for review and approval. There were several additional questions asked by this council, and those have all been posted on the city's website, so you should have had an opportunity to review those. And then also we have not only the applicant, Mr. Malone, but also Director DeGroot here if you have any additional questions.
From the dais, any questions by any council member? Seeing none. Alderman Mayor, any questions?
No, not right now, no.
Thank you.
We don't have any questions.
Mr. McCready, anyone online?
No one at this time.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, if there are no questions, Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Kilberg. Aye. Kasserag.
Aye.
Maladra.
Aye.
Mayor.
Mayor, aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Burkhart.
Aye.
Ruby.
Aye.
Caven.
Aye.
With a vote of 8 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 2 absent, item 11A has been approved. Item 11B, as stated by the city administrator, is related to item 11A, and that is to consider approval of ordinance number 2021-13, granting a special use to allow a continued use of the property located at 324 East State Street as a funeral home, and to expand the funeral home parking lot onto the property located at 314 East State Street, and granting conditional relief from section 11-6-E-4, subsection F, to allow a deviation from the parking lot lighting standards in the East State Street Corridor Design Guidelines, and relief from section 11-10-5, C2, subsection A, to decrease the amount of interior parking lot landscaping from 10% of the parking lot area to 4.3% of the parking lot area at 324 East State and 314 East State. Is there a motion to put this matter on the floor? Alderman Kasserag makes that motion. Seconded by Alderwoman Burkhart. Questions or comments from the dais? Alderman Kasserag.
Included in this one, is this part of the Plan Commission recommendation to keep the lighting guidelines in effect on the State Street part, but not on the interior? They keep
Correct.
the interior matching to what he has?
That's correct.
So that's included in here? Okay, great. Thank you.
Anyone else? Alderman Mayor, any questions or comments?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, whenever you're ready, sir.
Kasserag.
Aye.
Maladra.
Aye.
Mayor.
Mayor, aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Burkhart.
Aye.
Ruby.
Aye.
Caven.
Aye.
Kilberg.
With a vote of 8 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 2 absent, item 11B has been approved. Item 11C, consider approval of resolution number 2021-66, authorizing negotiation and execution of a professional services agreement with JLD Consulting Group. Is there a motion to bring this matter to the floor? Alderman Kilberg makes that motion. Seconded by Alderman Caven. Ms. Dawkins, anything else you'd like to add?
Sure, I would just, kind of reiterating what's in the packet, local governments often find it advantageous to retain outside paid representation for legislative monitoring and consulting, given the number of bills introduced in any given legislative session and the potential impact any given legislation may have directly on the municipality. For the city's council consideration is a resolution authorizing the city administrator to negotiate and execute a professional services agreement with JLD Consulting Group to provide government relations services and strategic consulting with respect primarily to energy legislation that could directly impact the city of Geneva.
Questions from the dais, ladies and gentlemen? Alderman Mayor, any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, whenever you're ready, sir, please take the roll.
Maladra.
Aye.
Mayor.
Mayor, aye.
Swanson.
Nay.
Burkhart.
Aye.
Ruby.
Aye.
Caven.
Aye.
Kilberg. Hasserag.
Aye.
With a vote of 7 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative, and 2 absent, item 11C has been approved. Public comment and new business. Mr. McCready, anybody wishing to join us for public comment?
No one joining us at this time.
Very well. Public comment from the dais. Alderwoman Burkhart.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to take a moment to congratulate the Chicago Steel hockey team and the former Steel players who were recently selected in the NHL draft, which was held July 23rd and 24th. 8 members of the Chicago Steel were selected in this year's draft, including Owen Power, who was selected first overall by the Buffalo Sabres. The Steel had 3 players selected in the first round of the draft, which is an amazing accomplishment. The total of 8 draft picks from the Steel represented the most players selected from any independent junior hockey team in the world. It's no surprise that the Chicago Steel won the Clark Cup last season, and the success is a testament to the entire Chicago Steel organization and the dedication of the young men selected. The Steel and the players are active in our community, and I hope more hockey fans in our area, and I know there are many, will recognize the caliber of hockey that is played right here in Geneva and continue to support the Chicago Steel during the upcoming season. And I might have a spouse that's a huge hockey fan, so. He was so excited. I mean, he was watching the draft. He's like, it's another one, another.
And of course, where was Owen educated?
Oh, gosh, you got me.
Geneva High School.
Oh, geez, yeah.
I'll send it to everybody. There's a video Geneva High School did regarding Owen matriculating, if you will, at Geneva High School. It's fascinating. Wow. Fascinating.
I think their general manager just got an award,
General manager, I think, yeah, you're right, who lives in Mill Creek, I believe. Yeah.
and we're back up on YouTube.
Fantastic. And we're back up on YouTube. Who's your husband's favorite team?
The St. Louis Blues. He's from St. Louis, so.
Oh, is there
Born
a
and
motion, is there a
bred.
motion to strike that from the record? Holy moly, it was going so well.
We went to Toronto when Hannah was like a year old, and we have a picture of her with the Stanley Cup wearing her
Oh, my.
St. Louis Blues sweater that her grandma had knitted for her. So,
Stanley Cup to Girl Scout cookies, what's next?
we'll talk about that after the meeting. So. Thank you.
Anyone else? Public comment, or excuse me, comments from the, yes, Alderman
I
Kilburg.
think it'd be appropriate also to mention our Olympian that medaled, and I know that that's been recognized through the city publications already, but quite an accomplishment for someone that was an overachiever through high school, as a cross-country and track participant, and through his dedication and hard work and commitment to his sport, reached the highest level. Quite an accomplishment, as well as some health challenges along the way, so Geneva proud.
Indeed.
I have something.
Yes, Mr. Clerk.
About 2 years ago, you may remember, some those of you who are here, my wife and I volunteered on a project with the History Center to restore the old West Side Cemetery. And we resurrected some stones, set them upright, and one in particular, a woman had been buried here in 1840, or 180 years ago, and her stone gradually fell down and was lying flat. When the stones lie flat, they get buried eventually, they get run over and cracked. So Heidi Hewlett at the History Center got certified in cemetery restoration and started the project, and then the pandemic hit. So this year again, they picked up, and I got a chance to go back and do some more. Found out, I know my life skills is cleaning gravestones. Who knew? Very good at it. I can't lift them, but I can clean them. So there are a whole bunch of weekends set up this year, and we're looking for volunteers. And it's a really rewarding experience, very fun. You go out for like 3 hours in the morning on a Saturday morning, and you can choose what you want to do. You can excavate gravestones. A lot of them are hidden all in the ground. We probe with metal probes, or clean them, set them upright. Somebody needs to record all the information. So it's really interesting. So they're definitely looking for volunteers to help out, and the more the better. You can reach Heidi at educator at genevahistorymuseum.org. It's easy enough to find. To date, we've cleaned 74, uncovered 34 gravestones that were lost, set 11 back up, and they just this year, just about a week ago, they epoxied 2 of them back together as an experiment to show how to do that. So it's been very rewarding. So if you want to volunteer, anybody that's recently retired, you might have some free time. It's been very rewarding experience.
That was
Thank
very
you.
subtle, Mr. Clerk. Well done. Anyone else? Alderman Mayor, anything you'd like to add?
Oh, thanks. I'm good.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the city council meeting.
So moved.
Alderman Kosterog makes that motion. A roll call vote would be in order since we do have an alderwoman or alderman joining us remotely. Excuse me.
Mayor,
Mayor, aye.
Swanson,
Aye.
Burghardt,
Aye.
Ruby,
Aye.
Caven,
Aye.
Kilberg, Kasserag,
Aye.
Malaja.
Aye.
We are adjourned from the city council meeting. We'll begin the committee of the whole meeting in just about 1 minute. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's committee of the whole meeting is called to order. Let the record show that all the council members are present save for Alderman Bruno and Alderman Marks, and Alderman Mayer is joining us remotely. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the July 19, 2021 Committee of the Whole meeting. Alderwoman Ruby, Burghardt, forgive me. Good Lord, I forget. I saw your mask down, so I thought you said it. So, is there a second?
Second.
Alderman Kosterog makes the second. Voice vote sufficient, folks. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
With 8 affirmative votes, 0 negative votes, and 2 absent, the minutes have been approved from the July 19th, 2021 meeting. Items of business. Item 3A, consider draft resolution authorizing the execution of a contract with Strata Construction Corporation or Company for the 2021 ADA Concrete Accessibility Project in an amount not to exceed $50,000. Is there a motion? Alderwoman Burghardt makes the motion,
Second.
and Alderman Kosterog makes the second. And I'll turn the floor over to Ms. Dawkins.
Okay, so this project entails the improvement of non-ADA compliant sidewalks, curbs, and curb ramps on various city streets. We received 3 bids with Strata Construction representing the low bid. Strata has done this type of work for the city in the past and has performed satisfactorily. If you do have more questions or specific questions about this item, we do have our associate city engineer, Brian Davids, on the line to answer any additional questions.
Any questions from the dais or from Alderman Mayer remotely? Anticipating none, seeing none. Mr. Clerk, whenever you're ready, sir, please take the roll.
Swanson,
Aye.
Burghardt,
Aye.
Ruby,
Aye.
Caven,
Aye.
Kilberg,
Aye.
Kasserag,
Aye.
Malaja,
Aye.
Mayor.
Mayor, aye.
With a vote of 8 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 2 2 absent. Item 3A has been approved and will be advanced to the City Council for additional consideration. Item 3B, consider draft resolution authorizing the purchase of a sludge feed pump. Who doesn't want a sludge feed pump? That's what I was going to get you, Craig.
There you go.
A sludge feed pump for the wastewater treatment plant from LAI Limited in an amount not to exceed $23,326. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Kosarog. And seconded by Swanson. Ms. Dawkins?
Okay, so we had funds were budgeted to repair the 23-year-old dewatering sludge feed pump at the wastewater treatment plant. The repair will consist of replacing the pump body assembly unit. This is a direct replacement part purchase from the sole source manufacturer's representative. The brand that we use is Progressive Cavity Pumps are in operation throughout the treatment plant, and it provides consistency of operation to the wastewater operators. We do have Superintendent Van Guskum on the line if you have any additional questions.
Any questions for the superintendent? Alderman Mayor, any questions?
No questions.
Ladies and gentlemen, a voice vote is sufficient. It was sufficient last time, too. I screwed up. So, on item 11B, as in boy, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Mayor, aye.
Anyone opposed? With a vote of 8 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 2 absent, this item has been approved and will be advanced to the City Council for additional consideration. Item 11C, consider draft resolution authorizing a contract with DPS Equipment Services Incorporated for a purchase of a primary clarifier flight assemblies at a total not to exceed $214,252.50. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Alderman Cosser, exasperated but recorded. Alderman Cosser. Seconded by Alderwoman Ruby. Ms. Dawkins.
Okay, for Brad. Funds were budgeted for the replacement of two 20-year-plus-year-old rotating flight chain assemblies within the 4 primary clarifiers at the wastewater treatment plant. Assemblies and 2 clarifiers were replaced in fiscal year '21, so this would complete the 2-year project. 2 bids were received, with DPS Equipment Services submitting the lowest bid. DPS Equipment Services has performed the replacement of the flight assemblies last fiscal year, and staff was satisfied with the results. There's a recommendation that a 10% contingency be included in the overall not-to-exceed amount to account for any unforeseen field changes that may occur. Any change orders would have to be approved by the city administrator prior to being applied to the contingency. And again, we do have Superintendent Van Guskum on the line with any additional questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions for the superintendent? Alderman Mayor, any questions?
I think they showed me these things when I was at the tour of the sewage treatment plant. So I believe I'm informed enough to vote on this one.
Excellent. That's why we're buying 2 new ones. They actually went missing after your tour. So it's like, a voice vote will be sufficient.
That would be tough to steal.
That would be. All in favor of item 11C, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Alderman Mayor, you want to record?
Mayor, aye.
Thank you. Anyone opposed? With a vote of 8 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 2 absent, item 11C will be advanced to the City Council for additional consideration. Item 11D, folks, consider draft resolution authorizing execution of an agreement related to the general obligation refunding bonds for waterworks and sewerage alternative revenue source, Series 2021A, general obligation refunding bonds, waterworks and sewerage alternate revenue source, Series 2021B. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Why can't I? Hey, we got to separate. It's like, Alderwoman Burkhart, forgive me. Seconded by, what the hell's her name again? Alderwoman Ruby. Sorry, guys. Ms. Dawkins.
Okay, so the finance director was approached by Robert W. Baird and Company Incorporated about refunding opportunity for the 2012B refunding bonds. Due to the low interest rate market, there's an opportunity to refund 3 IEPA sewer loans with an approximate present value savings between $653,000 and $750,000 net of fees, without extending the maturity of the current debt. The refunding delivery date is scheduled for the end of November 2021. In the bond refunding process, there are 4 participants. They include Moody's Investor Services, Spear Financial, Inc., Chapman & Cutler, and Robert W. Baird & Company. So the fees associated with each participant was listed in the agenda packet, and all of the costs would be paid from the proceeds of the refunding. Director Cruz is here this evening if you have any additional questions.
Any questions for Director Cruz? This is indeed good news. Good stuff. Good stuff. Any questions, Alderman Mayor? Alderman Primary
No
Clarifier
questions.
Flight Assembly Lady? No? Nothing? No questions? All in favor, ladies and gentlemen, of 11D, please indicate by saying aye.
Mayor, aye.
Anyone opposed? With a vote of 8 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 2 absent, item 11D has been approved and will be advanced to the City Council for additional consideration. Our final item, item 11E, consider draft ordinance amending Title VI, Police Regulation, and Title 10, Building Regulations of the Geneva Municipal Code to permit the keeping of chickens in the City of Geneva. Is there a motion to bring this matter to the floor?
So moved.
Alderwoman Burkhart?
Mayor, second.
Did it again.
What did I do? Did I really?
No, I was, oh, wait.
Yeah, Swan, okay. Good Lord. Seconded by Swanson. The motion was by Burkhart, the second by Swanson. Ms. Dawkins?
Okay, so on January 25th, 2021, the Committee of the Whole of the City Council held a policy discussion regarding the city's options for urban chickens. At the conclusion of the discussion, the committee directed staff to bring an ordinance to allow chickens within the City of Geneva and bring it back to a Committee of the Whole for further discussion. We do have City Planner True remotely with our technology, who's going to give us a brief overview of the ordinance for your consideration this evening. Chayton, it's all yours.
Right, can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir, thank you.
Can we see my screen?
We sure can. Do you want to enlarge
All
it
right.
to full screen? That would be helpful. There you go. That looks good.
All righty, let's go ahead and get started. So the Community Development Department has prepared a presentation to reintroduce the topic of allowing chickens within the city limits of Geneva. Tonight, we will briefly review the past policy discussions regarding urban chickens, including the meeting on January 25th. And we will also review the draft ordinance that has been developed by staff. So with that being said, we will go ahead and get started. So as mentioned, our first recent discussion on the topic that took place was on April 27th, 2009, and then this was followed again by further discussion on July 30th, 2012. And then recently on January 25th, the Committee of the Whole reintroduced consideration of permitting urban chickens in Geneva. And the Committee of the Whole at the time voted directing staff to draft an ordinance based on feedback received during that meeting. So just to give a brief recap of that meeting back in January, we highlighted several items around the keeping of chickens. We discussed the benefits of chickens, including the ability to provide pest control, alternative compost, and accessibility to nutritional eggs. We also covered common misconceptions, including the idea the chicken coops can attract predators and rodents. This is a possibility, but with adequate enclosures and proper maintenance of coops, these issues can be mitigated. We also touched on potential concerns, including odor, as unkept coops can produce odor. It's not if they're not properly maintained or cleaned. Again, this can be mitigated with property maintenance and regular cleaning. Also touched on appearance, including where coops and pens could be located or observed by the public. We also cover noise. Hens do make some noise, but they are relatively quiet in comparison to other noises commonly heard in residential neighborhoods. Hens can also periodically make noise while laying eggs, but on average, this usually lasts between 5 to 10 minutes while they're passing the egg, and that usually occurs no more than twice a day on average. So it's not it's not consistent, and when it does happen, it is brief. We also touched on the slaughter of chickens and just the overall challenges with the disposal of waste and the potential health concerns of that. And we did also touch on health risks from handling chickens, salmonella and campylobacter. But again, there are ways to mitigate that through proper hygiene and coop maintenance. We also touched on current regulations within the city of Geneva. As you know, we do not currently allow chickens. King County does allow chickens in certain zones with setback requirements. And in the state of Illinois, there are some state statutes, but they just ensure that animals are not allowed to run at large and freely roam. We also looked at regulations in other cities. We looked at some peer cities comparable to Geneva. We looked at Batavia, St. Charles, Warrenville, Naperville, and Downers Grove. Common elements of all of those communities' regulations regarding the keeping of chickens included the number of hens that residents could keep on their property, enclosure requirements, setback requirements, minimum lot sizes, yard location, building permits required, and then the limits on slaughter. But ultimately, we were able to form the draft that we'll share with you later in a couple moments. That was based off of those common elements that were found in other peer cities. And this is just a brief rundown of what we found when looking at those peer cities. Usually they allow 4 to 10 hens, and they have various requirements for enclosures, setbacks, lot, yard, locations, whether or not building permits are required, and slaughter. So we concluded the meeting in January with just asking if the committee of the whole wished to, amend the code to permit urban chickens. And if so, what broad elements would we like to incorporate into a proposed ordinance? We touched on that, and ultimately, at the time, council directed staff to put together an ordinance. So within the draft ordinance, I'll touch on the location that we put in the code, as well as new definitions that we're proposing, the types of permitted chickens, required enclosures, qualifying locations, setback requirements, required permits and fees, slaughter of chickens, sale of chickens or eggs, and then maintenance and sanitation. So the location in the code, we decided it would best fit in Title VI of police regulations. This is considered a suitable location based on that's where animal control code is located currently. It's also consistent with our other peer communities. That's a common location. We also added definitions. There's a total of 6 new definitions, including chicken, chicken coop, hen, chicken pen, rooster, and waterfowl. There was a need for a distinction between hens and roosters because hens would be allowed and roosters would not be allowed, but both are considered chickens. Therefore, adding being specific as to which types of chickens would be allowed, that was needed. And as I mentioned, the types of permitted chickens, hens would be allowed, but no roosters. No more than 6 hens would be allowed on a single family zoning district or a zoning lot. This felt like a good number based on staff research when we compared other peer communities. Downers Grove allows 4 chickens. To St. Charles allows 6, Batavia and Naperville allow 8, and Warrenville allows 10. And then moving on to the required enclosures and locations. Hens shall be kept in the rear yard within a coop, pen, or fenced yard at all times. and the coop would be considered the structure where the hens reside. A coop must provide a minimum of 4 square feet per hen, and then a pen is an area that would be surrounded by the coop that provides extra space for the hens to roam. And a pen would be required to provide a minimum of 16 square feet per hen. And a pen may be reduced to 10 square feet per hen, excluding the coop, provided that hens have access to a fenced yard. And these numbers were based on staff research and comparison of our peer communities. For example, Darien requires a minimum coop area of 4 square feet per hen, and Bensonville requires a minimum pen area of 10 square feet per hen. Research also suggests that a minimum pen area of 10 square feet per hen is suitable. Moving on to setback requirements, coops and pens shall be located in the rear yard. This was consistent through all peer cities regulations and supported from the Committee of the Whole meeting feedback we received on January 25th, 2021. A minimum 5-foot setback from property lines and structures on the lot would also be required. The 5-foot setback, that aligns with the setback requirements for detached accessory structures on zoning lots within Geneva right now. So we felt that that needed to be consistent with our existing regulations by having that 5-foot setback. And then also there would be a minimum 20-foot setback between coops, pens, and a neighboring residence in the actual homes. Moving on to required permits and fees, coops and pens will require a building permit, which is covered by a single fee of $50. And just for comparison purposes, a $50 permit fee, that's the lowest assessed building fee in the city of Geneva. Also, slaughter, the sale of chickens or the sale of eggs, all of those activities would be prohibited, not allowed. And then the maintenance and sanitation component, the code states that, or the proposed ordinance states that odor shall not be detectable from adjacent properties, and coops shall be constructed and maintained in a manner to be free of rodent infestation. And all of these regulations I just mentioned, they would be enforceable through provisions in Section 6.1.11 of the City Code, which details violations and penalties in the animal control section. So with that being said, we'd be happy to hear any feedback from the council on, how we're feeling about this proposed ordinance as presented, and we can determine next steps from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. True. Thank you, sir. Questions from the dais for either, principally Mr. True, correct, David? Okay. Mr. True is, of course, remote, which means he's downstairs in his office. So, from the dais, any questions? Alderwoman Burkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. If toward the end where we talked about, odor can't be smelled by neighbors and stuff, how would that be handled if there was a disagreement or or someone was breaking this code? The neighbor felt like.
I believe that would be up to the determination of our zoning code enforcer and through the building department. So I think that they would, go out, and if they determine that they can detect that from the neighboring property, then I think that's where the decision would be made.
Okay. And do you know what the ticket would be in that situation? This is probably out of your purview, I realize, so I might need to ask the city administrator, but I'm just seeing if there's any, teeth behind this code if someone were to break the, what it calls for.
Well, the penalties do have fines attached to them, so there would be.
But where do our penalties start? Or
So
I think
they
it's
start at
$25.
$25 and then they go up to $500 in this specific section of the code.
Okay, very good, thank you. And then the 20 feet so the coop or the pen can't be, if you in my neighborhood where the houses are pretty close together, so you would have to watch your where your neighbor's house is in relation to where the chicken pen would be, right?
That's correct. And that would be the actual dwelling unit.
Oh, gotcha, not like their garage, if they have a garage that's close to your property line, it's not the garage, it's the residence then.
Yes, so the required enclosures, which include the pen or the coop, those enclosures cannot be closer than 20 feet to the actual residential dwelling.
Okay. All right, thank you very much, that takes care of me right now.
Thank you. Alderman Caven, sir.
Thank you. A couple of questions. I'm looking in section 2, a minimum of 16 square feet per hen, excluding the coop. A pen may reduce to 10 square feet per hen, provided hens have access to a fenced yard. Why is it different if there's a fenced yard versus a non-fenced yard?
So if there was a pen, or I guess if there wasn't a fenced-in yard, then they would be required to have a pen to confine the chickens in. But if they did have the fenced-in yard, they could have the pen as well as allow them to roam with more area available to them within that fenced-in yard.
So if somebody has a fenced-in yard and the chickens are allowed to run wherever they want to in that yard, when you're talking about odor and other things that you're trying to keep away from somebody else's house, if those chickens can come right up to the fence and do whatever it is that they do right there, that's not going to be 20 feet away from some other resident's house. I mean, I'm certain that it's possible that it could be, but you're not guaranteeing that that's the case.
That's correct. So, that's something that the council, if they want to consider amending that. But I think there need to be a minimum distance between the required enclosures, which include the coop and the pen. I guess there's no minimum distance from a fenced-in yard to the residential dwelling, given that the fenced-in yard would not be considered a required enclosure such as a coop or a pen.
Okay.
But perhaps that's something that, could be included, that if it is within a fenced-in yard, that fenced-in portion has to be at least 20 feet from the residential dwelling, the neighbor's residential dwelling.
Okay. Same section as where I just was. Pens shall be of sufficient size, height, and material to maintain the confinement of the hens. I understand that you have to fill out, a permit, but what exactly does sufficient mean here? I mean,
well, yeah. So it would just need to be able to actually confine those animals. I guess it would need to, and that would be up to our code enforcement officers as well to determine that. But I don't think we wanted to get too specific on this, but leave it up to interpretation for those employees who are out there making sure that, enforcing this ordinance. But we can get a little more specific if, council feels that that's needed. But as long as those required enclosures, sufficiently can keep the chickens from, getting loose and roaming at large, then that's really what the code is trying to enforce.
okay, thank you. Again, I know that you have to have a permit, and building department takes a look at what your plans and your drawings are these structures, the way that this is written, being put in, are they permanent where they are placed, or are they mobile?
They could be either. They could be permanent or non-permanent.
Well, okay, I guess I'm just curious. I know that there are some that people can move from wherever they want to, so when you're talking about specifics of it has to be 20 feet away and different things like that, if it's one that is mobile, then I realize that you can call code enforcement and you can do other things, but if they're mobile, people can move them wherever they want to in their backyard, which I think might lead to some issues. And one last question for right now. I know we talked about the fines. If there is odor, code enforcement comes out, they make a determination, and then the homeowner would be fined appropriately, whether it was violation 1, 2, 3. If there is somebody who is called on regularly because they are not adhering to what this says, is there a way for their permit or being allowed to do this if somebody is habitually abusing this? Can their permit be rescinded or removed to where they're not allowed to have those anymore if a different neighbor finds themselves in that position with somebody who would have chickens?
I'm looking at our violation section right now. I do not know the answer off the top of my head. I know that this section discusses repeat offenders and how they would be fined at every instance of it occurring, which that could go up to $500. So potentially they could be facing, $500 fines repeatedly. Beyond that, I'm not 100% sure on what the next steps would be after that, but I can definitely look into that and get an answer for you and counsel.
It could be taken through adjudication, and that could happen. Like any other code compliance issue, if somebody's not in compliance, we can take them through adjudication to withhold the permit.
Is that similar? I know that they can go through that process, but is that going to then entail the neighbor who is essentially complaining to wind up having to go to court themselves?
No.
To show up to have
No.
that taken away? Or
No, because if we've issued fines and we have records that show that they've been not in compliance, the city can be the moving party.
Okay. I think that's all the questions that I have at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman Ruby.
Thank you. So kind of on the tails of that, what would happen to the chickens then? If a homeowner if they got their permit revoked?
Well, they would have to be disposed of humanely, and I don't mean disposed of, I mean given away, transferred to somebody else, but, I mean, we have provisions in the code that you can't have cruelty to animals and those types of things. So the chickens would not necessarily be homeless, I don't suppose. They would have to just. Foster home.
So, and along those same lines, has anyone researched what is the average lifespan of a chicken?
I have not, Chayton.
Let's find out.
Okay, and they lay eggs for what, about 3? Yeah, 3 or 4. Okay, so.
It's like, what's my line?
So you're not allowed to slaughter your chickens, which I'm fine with. It just brings question to my mind about what these families are gonna do with these chickens for all the years that they're not laying eggs and being productive. Do they treat them as pets, or there's a lot of gray here to consider.
So, just researched the average life of a chicken. It's 5 to 10 years. But I guess to answer your question as to what would happen after the useful use of the chickens, there are some butcher shops, I guess, in the area that I was told do perform, if they want to, process the chicken, or if they, want to do something else with it. I believe Country Village Meats, which is opening a butcher shop on East State Street, contacted them, just asked them, if that's a service that they provide. And unfortunately, they said they don't, because it requires a little more cleanup and maintenance than they would like to deal with. But that's one option that kind of came to mind when we were discussing as of what could they do with the chickens after, and taking them to someplace, a business in the area to get processed, if it came to that, would be an option. But the slaughter would not be allowed on that resident's property. They would have to take it to a commercial operation to have that handled, where they actually have the materials and the services to dispose of that byproduct properly.
Anything else, Alderwoman Ruby?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Mayor, do you have any questions?
I do.
The floor is
I
yours.
do actually. I have a comment actually. I think the setback and the 5-foot setback from property line and the 20-foot setback from residence. The setback to the property line seems too little to me. I mean, if my neighbors have a chicken coop and they put it 5 feet from the property line, I might not be very happy. I would think 10 to 15 feet might be a better agreement. It's just my point of view on it, that my shed is 5 feet from my neighbor's property line and my property line, and that seems quite close.
Anything
That's all.
else? Oops, excuse me. The floor is still yours, Alderman Mayor.
That's all I had. Just think 10 feet may be a better setback amount.
We'll certainly entertain amendments as we go forward. Alderman Kilburg?
First, I'd like to pass around a photograph from St. Charles to give you an example of what one of these fence cans look like. This would be on, oh, pardon me. First of all, I'd like to show you a photograph from, I guess, apparently a legal site in St. Charles, on the east side of St. Charles. And again, it's a distance photo. It's a little bit of a distant photo because I can see why maybe code enforcement doesn't want to go there, because they got a huge dog. You know, if you take a photograph, you can't get too close. But it gives you an idea of a bunch of 2x4s, the chicken wire, and a bunch of this screen blown in the wind. And again, you can't maybe see all that, but if you want to drive by it, I'll give you the address after the meeting. You seen it? Yeah. Go ahead. So, I think this is an example of code enforcement has a lot to do, and we're going to give them another task to go out and make an assessment of whether or not a chicken operation, a hen operation is legal or not. I don't think our police department really probably cares to get too involved in this either. My question is, what is the legal height currently of a side fence on a street in Geneva? Is it 4 feet?
Currently, that's 42 inches.
40, okay, it's not even 4 feet. So technically, we're saying that you can have chickens if they comply and stay within the 42-inch fence. Because you're saying here, as Alderman Caven pointed out, that as long as their yard's fenced, that's sufficient, and they're responsible for keeping the chickens in their yard. But 42 inches isn't going to be sufficient to keep a hen contained, because that's about the ideal height that they'd want to roost at. So let's imagine that you live next door to this, and you're having neighbors over on a Saturday afternoon, and you're on your patio in the back, and the chickens are in the backyard and they're up against the fence line, cackling and working the fence line as you're enjoying a Saturday evening with neighbors, I don't think that's probably going to be all that appealing. The other thing is I think in Geneva, all of us as aldermen know that there are tensions between neighbors. And I think what we're doing here is we're creating an environment for tension between neighbors unnecessarily. If we were to move forward and approve this, I think it would be important that we incorporate in the ordinance that when they apply for their permit, their adjacent neighbors should be signing off and agreeing to the hens that this individual might be proposing to bring into the neighborhood. You know, what we're doing here is we're producing food for human consumption. So everything that we eat really should go through some type of an inspection. I mean, true vegetables, our own gardens and our own vegetables, probably not. But once we start talking about eggs and a history of salmonella and concerns about salmonella, you know, this is something, are these eggs going to be refrigerated properly? Are they being cleaned properly? Are they being lighted for blood spots? Even if it's for their consumption within their own family, I think this is a basic safety issue that should be addressed. Are we requiring any type of vet care or any type of an annual certification by a veterinarian that the animals, the birds are disease-free? In California, they had a massive outbreak of exotic Newcastle. You say, well, that's large egg companies or that's large poultry operations. No. It consumed the entire state of California, and this disease was exotic Newcastle. And they destroyed millions and millions of birds, even going into backyards and taking 6 or 8 hens and destroying them because they had to eradicate the disease. So to say that these are harmless is not necessarily the case. There is a history. In Iowa, over 50 million hens were destroyed because of avian influenza, and that was 7 years ago. There is a health risk associated with this. And, you know, I think that to underestimate the fact that there could be potential problems as it relates to health is something that should be considered. You know, the other thing is that how do okay, we're going to require a coop, and obviously the residents are going to feed them and take good care of them. They're going to make every effort to do that. But for a hen to lay eggs in the winter, they need water. And when it's 10 below in Geneva, guess what happens to water? It freezes. So anybody that's thinking they're going to produce eggs from December, January, and February when our conditions are below 32 degrees, it's going to take a lot of maintenance unless you have some type of an electrical heater or some sort to keep a water supply in front of these birds. And that probably will involve an electrical cord. And I think that there's a potential danger when you start running electrical cords from your house in the wintertime and maybe you're sending Junior out there to water the chickens. You know, these are things that need to be thought about. And finally, if you look at that photograph there, how would you like to be living next to that and you decide you're going to move and you're going to try to sell your property? I think that these types of things have an impact on real estate values. In other words, you're showing a home or a realtor's showing a home and all of a sudden you pull up in front of it and you've got a chicken coop in the neighbor's backyard. Is that going to be very appealing? I'm just saying I don't think that's necessarily going to help you sell your property. You know, I've got about another half a dozen things here that probably tell us that this is a bad idea. We voted on it 9 years ago and voted it down. Just because some other communities have had experiences with it, it doesn't mean that there's neighbors that aren't concerned about having a neighbor with chickens. I think they just they just bury it because they don't want to get in a feud with their neighbors, because there's so many other issues that they can get in a feud with their neighbor over. And I was opposed to it in 2012, and I'm opposed to it today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Alderman Kasserag?
Just a couple questions for Chayton. Did you consider any peer communities that did not allow chickens?
We did not. Yeah, the intent was just to look at what other communities were doing to possibly, permit this. So we did not.
Okay, okay. One of the things I think you had on the slide that some cities that did, in a way that they regulated it, was by the size of their yard. But I noticed in the regulations that you had up on there, I did not see anything, just the setback requirements. Was that an intentional omission or something you just didn't feel like was appropriate for Batavia, or did I miss it? If so, I apologize.
So we wanted to approach council with providing the minimum requirements for an enclosure or a coop. If the lot in the rear yard could allow, at least 16 square feet per chicken and 4 square feet per chicken for a coop, if they were to meet that requirement and their yards could fit that and meet the setback requirements, then that yard could qualify for chickens. So depending on the size, that would then dictate how many chickens could be allowed, up to 6 hens.
Okay, and then I guess I was just wondering, I know this is like first world problems, but I do live in a golf course community where almost, everybody lives and their backyard is open to a golf course. I guess I was wondering if there was any consideration given to those circumstances, and, you're not allowed to have a fence unless it's a safety concern in those areas. What, if anything, would be done in those circumstances?
Well, the ordinance as proposed would allow, this, the keeping of hens on single-family zoning lots. So if there were specific neighborhoods that had the authority to, possibly regulate that, that would be up to them. But we didn't specifically carve out any certain zoning districts aside from it being allowed on single-family zoning lots.
Okay. Well, I know I voted for exploring this back in January, but I feel like a lot of the objections that have been brought out tonight, I certainly agree with. Most importantly, that code violations would go through our single code enforcement officer, who we all know is overworked and overtaxed, and has a hard time even keeping up with issues that I think we bring to his attention, that our neighbors bring to our attention. I don't feel like it's worth it. I guess even as you were talking, I'm thinking, well, how many code enforcement officers does Downers Grove have? They allow it, but maybe they can keep up with it better. And so the bottom line is, I know that there's a few people. I'm all for, if you've got a farm or you've got 10 acres and you can hide it back in the corner and nobody sees it, and I'm all for allowing it. It's certainly not something that I'm looking to regulate to that point, but for most of the quarter, third, half acre lots that I see in my ward, I don't feel like they're appropriate. And in discussing with neighbors in the second ward, I literally have not heard anybody that's interested. I know there are some people out there. I'm aware of the Facebook group that is interested, but this is just something I also do not support. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Swanson, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. It seems like most of the people on the dais are concerned about finding reasons not to approve this. And I guess I look at it from the other side, and that's there are dozens of communities that allow it and have allowed it for years. And specifically, Villa Park tried a pilot program 2 years ago. They allowed up to 15 chicken owners, different residences, to see what would happen. And earlier this year, in 2021, they expanded it based on the lack of complaints. We're concerned about the code enforcement. Perhaps there won't be. We're all painting this bleak picture that it's going to be terrible, yet we don't know. We're speculating and saying that it's going to be a disaster. You look at the other communities, St. Charles, Batavia. Batavia enacted their program the same time we rejected it 9 years ago. And as far as I understand it, they have had very few complaints, an escaped chicken here or there, but residences are not overly excited about it, and home values, as far as I know, have not plummeted in Batavia. Other cities, Naperville, Downers Grove, Western Springs, Warrenville, West Dundee, Evanston, all of them have had chickens for a long time, and as far as I can tell, just in some quick research, have not seen huge problems that we need to be so concerned about. Elgin did a pilot program in 2014, again, 15 residences. In 2015, they said, hey, this program was successful. Let's expand it to 25. And then in 2017, they made it permanent and expanded it to 100. So what that tells me is that throughout all the communities that are allowing it, there aren't the problems that we all are trying to foresee. So based on that, I would support this. I don't think that it's pervasive that we're going to have chickens in every yard. I think it's probably a very small subset. But again, instead of telling people what they can't do, I'd like to say, yes, you can do that as long as it doesn't harm the neighbors, and we're establishing codes to do that. So I would support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who has not yet spoken wish to speak or ask questions of our professional staff? If not, I do believe, Alderman Kilberg? No?
Offer some amendments to the ordinance.
Okay, and we do have somebody online, so after you, no, that's okay, go ahead, go for it. Yep, all yours. Oh, she's not? No. Okay, let me know what's going on. All yours, sir.
I would require an electrical service to the chicken coop. I think that should be a safety consideration because of the fact that I don't think our fire department or anyone in a regulatory role in the city would think that an extension cord to a chicken coop to keep water flowing through the winter months is a safe way to go about doing that. I think we should have, these are, you want me to offer them collectively or one at a time?
My suspicion is one at a time might be best,
Okay?
unless you think they're all directly related, but,
No.
okay, so the amendment being offered by Alderman Kilberg is to require, as part of the permitting process, electric service to the coop. Is there a,
Since it's removed from any of the buildings,
right,
the only way that they can get electricity to it is with an extension cord, unless they have a generator that they're gonna run 24/7. I think an electrical service should be a requirement.
is there a second to that amendment?
I'll second it. I have a question.
Alderwoman Ruby makes the second. On the amendment, Alderwoman Ruby?
So, Mr. Kilberg, can you explain, this is strictly for water that you're, okay. I mean, I grew up on a farm and we carried buckets of water out in the winter when our pump got frozen. I mean, I just don't think it's that big of a deal in town to carry water from your house out to your backyard.
I just think if you're doing this to produce eggs, it's not gonna work 3 or 4 months of the year.
Sure.
If
Well,
water freezes.
and chickens typically don't lay eggs in the winter either, so.
Well, they will if they have water, and if
Okay.
there's a sufficient temperature within the coop for them to produce, and that would be ideally around 60 to 70 degrees.
Sure, yeah, I just think requiring electric would be would be too much for somebody who wanted chickens, I think that expense and that effort would be asking a lot. That's just my personal opinion. So, thank you.
Thank you. On the amendment? Alderman
I
Mayor?
have a
any-
question.
Yes, all yours.
We mentioned the setbacks, and you just said, well, it has to be offset from the house. Do these chicken coops actually need to be offset from the house, or can they be semi-attached?
Mr. True?
So, it has to be a minimum of 5 feet from the property lines and structures located on the property.
So that would include your house itself and any sheds, anything like that. So like if I wanted to put a chicken coop in, I couldn't make a tandem off the side of my shed. It doesn't necessarily make much sense. Seems like that would be a good pairing.
Yeah, so it's 5 foot from the property lines and structures located on the property. That's the way it's drafted right now.
I know, I think there's
Okay. I tend to agree. It seems like it'd be a good idea to have electric, but
That's why.
I'm no authority on this matter, so I won't.
Anything else, Alderman Mayor?
No, that is all.
Anyone else? We have an amendment by Alderman Kilberg, seconded by Alderwoman Ruby, to quote, and I'm paraphrasing, require an electric service to the coop on the amendment. Mr. Clerk, whenever you're ready.
Burkhart,
Nay.
Ruby,
Nay.
Caven,
Aye.
Kilberg. Aye. Kosrog,
Aye.
Maladra. Nay. Mayor,
Mayor, nay.
Swanson,
Nay.
With a vote of 3 in the affirmative and 5 in the negative, 2 absent, the amendment fails. Alderman Kilberg, back to you, sir.
In addressing Alderman Kosterog's comments as well as Alderman Caven, I think that if in fact this was to be approved as an ordinance, I think the lot size should be at least 1/4 of an acre.
Is that an amendment, sir?
Yes, it is.
The amendment offered by Alderman Kilberg is to require that those residences or property owners wishing to keep chickens must have property of at least 1/4 of an acre. Is there a second to that amendment?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Maladra. Questions, comments, discussion on the amendment? Alderman Kosterog?
I wholeheartedly say that it should be significantly more than 1/4 acre. So I totally agree with the philosophy that we need to set that, but I think it should be something more like an acre or something like that. I'm open to ideas on that, though, but thank you.
I'd accept a friendly modification to my,
Which is permissible, yeah?
May I make a friendly amendment
Yes, you may.
to change that to a 1 acre lot?
Minimum of 1
Minimum
acre.
of 1 acre.
Does the motion concur?
I'm in agreement.
The amendment is for a minimum of 1 acre, ladies and gentlemen. Questions on that matter? Alderman Kosterog still has the floor. Anything else, sir?
That's it for me on this issue, thank you.
Alderman Mayor, anything for you, or from you, excuse me?
Are we going to vote on that measure first? I don't have anything to say about that.
Yeah, we will. We'll be voting on the 1 acre minimum first as an amendment to the main motion.
Oh, okay.
Alderwoman Ruby, excuse me, Burkhart? God,
We get to sit together like one time and we can't like.
I don't know why, I just totally unacceptable. I apologize.
It's all right. 1 acre. Is there any lots in the city of Geneva that are an acre? There have to be very few. I grew up on like 3/4 of an acre, and I'm trying to visualize it, and I can't think of how many lots are actually an acre. And David, are you able to maybe tell us how? I mean, I don't expect you to give it a number, but it's pretty rare that we have a whole acre in the city limits.
I think our minimum requirement in the largest single-family district is 20,000, which is a little less than half an acre. So there's not many acre lots, even at that minimum requirement. We've got zoning districts that have 6,500 square feet minimums, 10,000 or 8,400 square feet, 10,000, 13,000, and then it jumps to 20,000.
I'll say I have a friend who lives in Western Springs and has a coop that looks like it could be on the cover of Martha Stewart Living in her postage stamp size lot there in Western Springs. So I'll be voting no on this amendment. Thank you.
Anyone else on the amendment offered? Alderwoman Ruby.
I do support a minimum lot size. I just don't know what it should be. I have a hesitation with this topic in general. My concern is the amount of staff time going into this when no one has even requested it. And I think it's a good conversation to have, but I don't want to send staff on a wild goose chase doing all this research and having no one even interested in pursuing it. So I definitely support the minimum lot size. I mean, like in my neighborhood, I can't imagine. I wouldn't mind personally, but I can't imagine it in our little teeny tiny yards. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's something that can be quickly researched just based on neighboring communities, maybe. I think that is an important element of this. I just don't know how to define it. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I have something to say on that.
Okay, before I recognize Alderman Kilberg or Alderman Mayor for a second time, is there anyone who wants to speak to this amendment who has not yet spoken to the amendment? And again, the amendment is for a minimum 1 acre size lot with the permission of raising chickens. Yes, Alderman Maladra, then I'll go back to Mayor, then Kilberg.
If setting the minimum at 1 acre effectively means, you know, it's not, we won't allow chickens in Geneva, I think we should just vote the ordinance down outright. If we are trying to accomplish something by establishing a lot size requirement, we should pick a size that there are lots in town that could meet it. So you said there aren't many 1 acre lots, how about half acre? I know it sounds like horse trading, and horses aren't allowed in Geneva either.
I wish I could pull up a zoning map so we could look at it. But our most restrictive zoning district requires 40,000 square feet. The next one down is 20,000 square feet.
So what are those square
And
feet
those,
equate to?
40,000 is a little less than an acre, so 20,000 would be a little less than half an acre. And that's not, I think the majority was probably more in that 10 to 15,000 range. And then if you look at like the Northwest additions, those are smaller lots that are probably under that 10,000.
So I think what we're trying to do is ensure that these things can be as far away from neighboring properties as possible. So you said most lots are in the 10 to 15,000 square foot range?
I believe so, yes.
So what if we set the minimum at 15,000 square feet?
We can't do so through a friendly amendment at this time. This particular amendment has to be voted up or down.
Gotcha.
But it can be revisited.
I call the question then on the pending amendment.
On the pending amendment, I did promise Alderman Mayor, anything.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Anything you want to add, Alderman Mayor, with respect to the amendment of minimum 1 acre
Yeah.
lot size?
I think we're trying to solve a problem that's actually a setback problem, not a size problem. If you don't have 20 feet setback from your neighbor's property line, then you don't have a big enough yard to have chickens. That's how I look at it. So I would like my neighbors, if they do this, to have it far away from their property lines. I have friends who raise chickens. It's not bad. It's totally fine. They keep their chickens in a very small area. I support letting people have chickens in Geneva. I just think by putting a minimum lot size on it, you're not really addressing the issue, which is really a setback issue.
Very well. The amendment being offered by Alderman Kilberg and Alderman Kasserag is to require at least a 1 acre lot for the keeping of chickens. A simple up or down vote on this matter. Mr. Clerk, whenever you're ready, sir.
Ruby,
Nay.
Caven,
Aye.
Kilberg,
Aye.
Kasserag,
Aye.
Maladra,
Nay.
Mayor,
Mayor, nay.
Swanson,
Nay.
Burghardt.
Nay.
With 3 in the affirmative and 5 in the negative, 2 absent, the amendment fails. Alderman Kilberg, I know you had a series of amendments you wanted to offer.
Yeah, I'll revisit that one again, based off of the additional information that were provided in Alderman Maladra's comments. I propose that we settle a requirement of 15,000 square feet.
As an amendment, Alderman Kilberg offers a minimum lot size of 15,000 square feet to allow residents or property owners to, quote, keep chickens. Is there a second to that amendment? Alderman Maladra makes the second. Questions regarding the amendment, ladies and gentlemen? Alderwoman Ruby.
May I ask, does anyone know what that equates to? I mean, are we back to our quarter acre original estimate? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's about a
Third of an acre. Okay.
It's about a third of an acre, approximately,
Okay.
yeah.
And can I ask Alderman Mayor, I think you hit the point, you hit the nail on the head. Finally came to me, with the setback issue. So what, is that part of this ordinance, as is, the 20-foot minimum setback?
Well, it's 20 foot from a structure, not from the property line.
Oh, okay. So, but yeah, I like the idea. That's not on this amendment. I'll stop talking. Thank you.
Alderman Swanson, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, it seems like we're eliminating huge portions of Geneva and saying this isn't for us. My neighborhood that I live in, the average lot size is 9,000 square feet, nowhere near the amendment that's proposed. My first house in Geneva was in Williamsburg South. It was approximately 11,000 square feet, nowhere near. So we're eliminating the new developments on the west side, the old develops on the east side. We're basically saying there's nowhere in Geneva, we're going to allow this. So I agree with Alderwoman Mayer that this is a setback issue, not a lot size issue, and that's the way to address it. So I will be voting against this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to the amendment? Alderwoman Burghardt.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, and thank you, Alderman Mayor, for helping us, helping me at least formulate it. I mean, yeah, you could have an acre, but if you decide to put it right on top of your neighbor's lot line, or 15,000, whatever size it is, you could, under this ordinance, still kind of hug your neighbor's lot line if you wanted to. So I guess I'm more interested in a discussion about the setback, but I'm also in favor of how Alderman Swanson sees it, as giving people telling people something they can do as opposed to something they can't. And then finally, does this become a planning and zoning issue if we start to talk about square footage of lots and it feels like one thing if we're saying, okay, everybody can do it with this consistent, but when we get into, I don't know, something feels off about this, so I guess I was asking for the city attorney if there's any thoughts on that.
Certainly, given property usage, the city council can decide minimum lot or setback requirements. So the idea that lot size may discriminate because of particular uses, we do that anyway in some circumstances. You can't have an accessory sized element in your backyard in a very small lot. So square footage and lot usage and permitted setbacks are all zoning and land use-esque, but so too is permitted uses like we're talking about today. So it is permitted, and you can discriminate on lot size.
But usually when we do like change our zoning on sheds or hockey, didn't the ice hockey rink, didn't that go through planning and zoning first?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was side yard issues, yeah.
I guess, yeah, discriminate is the word I guess I was thinking for it. It feels a little,
Well, with more land, you have more capacity for use.
oh, no, I'm not
And-
saying, ultimately, I'm just surprised that it doesn't have to go through like a public hearing process before planning and zoning, before we decide on a Monday night with, on,
Yeah.
nobody here to even, kind of speak up, so.
As drafted, we have it in Title VI, which is police regulations and animal control, which is why it doesn't have to go before the Planning and Zoning Commission. And most communities did place it there because it is tied to animal control. You could layer it in multiple sections of the city code, and then it would have to go through Planning and Zoning Commission. But and most have taken that simple approach of just locating it there.
No, and I get that. I'm just saying, when we're talking about, like Alderman Swanson saying, saying to 2/3 of the city, like, here's something we're allowing 1/3 of the city to do, but 2/3 of the city has no, it's off the table. I'm just uncomfortable with us doing that in this setting, but I will trust our legal counsel, and if it's okay, it's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Maladra, sir. This is on the amendment, of course.
Okay. So I'm not saying 2/3 of the city can do something and 1/3 of the city can't. I'm saying that having chickens in your backyard is something that's more appropriate for places where there's a lot of room between properties, more appropriate for big lots than it is for small lots. Once upon a time, livestock was allowed in urban settings all over America, and we moved away from that. And we moved away from that as urban areas got more crowded and lots got smaller. We moved away from that because of the nuisance factor and the health factor. We do tell people all the time what they can and can't do when health is involved, and we also tell them all the time what they can and can't do when nuisance is involved. We spent part of our review of the Malone property talking about lighting to make sure that the lights don't annoy the neighbors. We're okay telling people what they can't do when we agree with it, and we're not okay with telling them what they can't do when it's something we don't mind. In my mind, this is a nuisance factor at a minimum and a health factor at a maximum. There's a reason why livestock is not allowed in urban areas. I'm thinking specifically of areas where you've got your standard 50 by 80 lot, that's what, 4,000 square feet? So I threw 15,000 out there as a number. I admitted I was pulling it out of the air, but I can say pretty safely that 50 by 80 seems to me to be too small. We're talking about an ordinance where we're going, oh, but that'll only be a problem if everybody does that, and I think very few people are going to do it. We've spent way too much time debating something for very few people. I don't see the harm in staying with what Geneva has always offered, with what Geneva allowed or didn't allow when those very few people chose to move here. Instead, I think about this is going to take off like crazy. Everybody wants chickens because we've debated it 5 times. And so what happens if everybody has chickens in an area where the lots are 50 by 80? I think it gets to be a problem. So to me, I'm comfortable with this in areas where lots are larger. I agree with Alderman Mayer's point about setbacks, but I'm trying to figure out how that setback thing works in an area where the lots are 50 by 80. So can you allow the chicken coop if it's a 20-foot setback from the lot line? I think you can put it right in the middle of it, but it's still very densely packed. So that's all. I just don't like looking at it like I'm saying to 2/3 of the city, no. I'm saying this is a problem best served by big lots. Thanks.
On the amendment, anyone else? We're prepared to take a vote on the amendment. The amendment as stated is a permit to allow for the keeping of chickens would require a minimum 15,000 square foot lot within the corporate limits of the city of Geneva. On the amendment, Mr. Clerk, whenever you're ready.
Caven,
Aye.
Kilberg. Aye. Kasserag,
Aye.
Maladra,
Aye.
Mayor,
Nay. Mayor.
Swanson,
Nay.
Bruno, oh, sorry, he's not here. Burkhart,
Nay.
Ruby.
Aye.
The amendment has been adopted with 5 affirmative votes, 3 nay votes, and 2 absent. Now we are back to the main motion as amended. Questions on the main motion as amended? Of course, we're referring to slide number 17 of the 45-page slide presentation. Alderman Kasserag.
I just want to say, with all this, other communities have it, they don't have problems. I don't think there's a problem with Geneva having an alternate option for its residents. I don't think there's anything that we need to feel pressure because St. Charles allows it, because Warrenville allows it, because Downers Grove does, because it was successful in Villa Park. I don't think there's any correlation in that argument to why Geneva needs to allow it. I think we've done fine for almost as Alderman Maladra said, for so long. We have a small group of people that want them. They have the right to ask for it. I don't mind spending time debating it, but I don't think that just because other places allow it forces Geneva to allow it. I think we have the right to propose an alternate on issues, be it chickens or any other issue, and I think that's perfectly valid, and we can leave it at that. That's just my opinion.
Mayor?
Alderman Swanson, sir.
Thank you. Just to respond, my reasoning was not just because other communities do it is why we should do it. My point was multiple large communities have allowed it for years without problems. And my point was we were looking for problems to deny this. And the evidence showed me that these problems do not exist in communities that have it. That was the point. So it was not a logic question, because they do, we should. It was, show me where the problems are in other communities that allow it. Thank you.
Anyone else? This is on the main motion, ladies and gentlemen, as amended, with the 15,000 square foot minimum lot size. Alderman Caven, sir.
Thank you. I do think that Alderwoman Mayer made a good point as well as far as the setback goes. So the other two things that I am not very excited about is, I think that the setback should be further than 5 feet from the property line. I don't know exactly what the number should be, but I don't think that it should be 5 feet. I think that it should be further. And my other concern that I brought up earlier was, I don't really want these structures to be portable, where somebody is able to move them on their own accord around through their backyard. That's another item that concerns me. So I don't know if I want to offer a motion. I'll see if anybody else has anything to add. But I would like to see the setback further than 5 feet from the property line. So I won't make a motion. I'll see if there's anybody else who has any interest in making that a larger distance, and we can go from there. Oh, one additional thing as well. I'm not necessarily trying to look for problems, but if this structure that was passed around that's in St. Charles was next to any one of our neighbors' houses that we live next to, or our own house, I don't think that you'd be very happy. So with that, thank you.
Thank you, sir. On the main motion as amended, Alderman Kilberg, sir.
Speaking to Caven's point, I would move that we strike the reference in item 2, fenced yard, as, and my understanding is that you have a coop, a pen, or you can let your chickens roam in your backyard as long as it has some type of a fence. We don't specify the height of the fence. All we're saying is, well, they got to keep them contained. I'm saying let's strike fenced yard and only allow, only retaining kept within a coop or pen.
Kept within a coop or pen as
Right.
defined within the proposed ordinance.
Right. And
And
strike
strike-
or fenced yard at all times.
Period after pen.
Correct.
And that's an amendment to the main motion.
Yes, it is.
Is there a second to that amendment, ladies and gentlemen? Seconded by Alderman Kasserag. On that amendment offered by Alderman Kilberg and seconded by Alderman Kasserag. Alderman Mayor, any
Mayor, excuse me, related to that, there is a reference also to fenced yard
Right.
in item, Roman numeral, item 2. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so remove or fenced yard throughout the document.
That's
as
correct.
drafted. Okay. Alderman Mayor, I'll turn to you first. Any questions?
No, can I add in an amendment?
Not until this
Friendly,
amendment is,
friendly suggestion?
you can offer a friendly amendment to what's been suggested, but you can't offer a separate amendment. Would you like to ask the motioner?
I would say a friendly additional amendment would be to change 5 feet to 10 feet for the property line setback.
That would have to be considered separately. So we'll
Okay.
consider this matter first, and if you're interested, I can recognize you first after a vote, then certainly you're free to offer any amendment, since setback is in a different
Okay.
section of the draft ordinance. On the amendment offered by Kilberg, seconded by Kasserag, Alderwoman Burkhart?
Thank you. Can I get clarification? So basically, this says you have to keep the chickens in a pen
Or a coop.
Right.
or a coop.
In other words, just say I got
Yeah.
a 42-inch fence around my yard, I can let them roam. I'm saying, no, you have to keep them in a contained pen where the possibility of them roosting on the fence or straying from the property doesn't exist.
And if you have an acre property, you could do a half-acre pen and just let them run as long as they're in their
As
own.
long as you want to build a big pen, I could see where people could use essentially retaining that orange retaining fence. I've seen, we've had that in our ward where people have put those up temporarily, and they're not very attractive.
All right, I wanted to make sure I understood. Thank you.
On the amendment, anyone else? We're clear what the amendment is, and that is to remove the language or fence throughout the document. Mr. Clerk, whenever you're ready, sir.
Kilberg,
Aye.
Kasserag,
Aye.
Maladra,
Aye.
Mayor,
Mayor, aye.
Swanson,
Nay.
Burkhart,
Aye.
Ruby,
Aye.
Caven.
Aye.
With 7 affirmative votes, 1 nay vote, 2 absent, the amendment has been adopted to the main motion, if you will. Alderman Mayor, I promised you the floor. The floor is yours.
I move that we add, I don't have the ordinance draft in front of me, but that we change the 5-foot setback reference to 10 feet.
Section 3, Alderman Mayor, via amendment, requires that the side yard setback change from 5 feet to 10 feet. Is there a second to that amendment? Seconded by Alderman Maladra. Discussion on the amendment, ladies and gentlemen? Alderman Mayor and Alderman Maladra, just to clarify, that is a 10 feet setback from property line and all structures as originally indicated, or just from property line? Because I'm going to ask the question about Alderman Mayor's shed. It can be closer to the shed, because the current document states it has to be at least 5.
I think it's 10 feet from property line, period, no other
Got it.
clarification, but
Okay.
I don't understand the reason why it was from structures as well.
Right. Alderman Mayor, or excuse me, Alder people, questions? Thank you for, that was Alderwoman Ruby laughing. Any questions on the amendment?
Sorry, I lost.
The amendment offered by Alderman Mayor and seconded by Alderman Maladra was to increase the side yard setback from the property line from the existing 5 feet to recommended 10 feet.
For the coop or the pen?
Yes, both.
Coop and pens.
Coop and pens, yeah. Any questions for anybody, or from anyone? Mr. Clerk, all yours. Oh, wait, excuse me, Alderman Caven, sir.
Just wanted to confirm this doesn't change the 20 feet setback from the other residence. This is just from the 5 feet from there. It does not change the 20 feet from the other structure, though, as well.
Right, it's only
Right?
the 10
just
feet
wanted to-
from the
I
property
just
line.
wanted to
Correct.
clarify that.
We're
Other
just
part's
changing
still
that
there.
first section.
Okay.
Got it, which is in section 3, I believe. Okay.
So it has to be 20 feet from my shed, but only 10 feet from my neighbor's yard? Is that what we're saying?
No, we're saying it has to be,
It has to be 20 feet from the dwelling, but it
Okay.
has to be 10 feet from the property line.
Okay, but my garage or my shed do not apply.
And if we leave it as, it would be a 5 foot from structures located on the property. If we leave it as, or
that's why I
eliminate
asked the
that.
question.
Right.
So,
Because the way it reads right now is 5 feet setback from property lines and structures. What I believe Alderman Mayor was asking was for 10 feet setback from property line, with no reference to the structures.
And yes, that's right.
And then it's a 20-foot setback from the required enclosures and residential dwellings, so from the actual dwelling.
Okay. All right, thank you.
anyone else? Mr. Clerk, whenever you're ready, sir.
Kasserag,
Aye.
Maladra,
Aye.
Mayor,
Mayor, aye.
Swanson. Sure. Burkhart,
Nay.
Ruby,
Nay.
nay?
Yeah, nay.
You have to speak with, integrity.
Nay, sorry, I was going to agree with Swanson for once, and
Oh, don't do that, no.
sorry.
Caven,
Aye.
Kilberg.
Aye.
With, 6 affirmative votes, 2 nay votes, and 2 absent, this amendment has been adopted. We're at the main motion, folks, as amended.
It's 3 tenths of it.
Yep, it's been amended thrice. Questions or comments regarding the main motion as amended thrice? Alderman Mayor, do you have anything you'd like to ask questions about on the main motion as amended?
No.
The brevity of that response. Alderman retiree.
I just want to say that, to me, it seems counterintuitive to pass an ordinance that we're either counting on or hoping very few people will take advantage of. Geneva is doing fine without making this change. So as we consider the vote, please consider the possibility or the idea that everybody would want to take advantage of this. Because if we're actually changing our code for something that we hope a few people would be doing, then we probably shouldn't be changing our code.
Anyone else on the dais? Alderwoman Ruby.
Thank you. So along those same lines, I would be interested in discussing 2 ideas. One, proposing a trial, like a 1-year trial for the ordinance, and 2, putting a limit, like Alderman Swanson stated with the neighboring communities, capping the number of homes that we will give permits to during this first year. And just call it have a trial, a chicken trial period. I would be much more comfortable with that, introducing it in that fashion. So I don't know if other people want to discuss that. Either of those ideas? Bueller?
Are you offering an amendment, Alderwoman?
I think that's good.
No, I was hoping just to discuss it. Can we discuss it without having to formally offer an amendment?
You can, since we are discussing the main motion as amended thrice. Any topic related thereto can be discussed before an amendment's offered.
Okay, yeah,
absolutely.
so if anyone's interested in making this a one-year trial or capping the number of permits that we would allow, please speak up.
Alderman Mayor, I think you were prepared to speak?
Yeah, I would make that motion that we make it a one-year trial and cap the number of permits that we offer.
Do you have a number for the cap? 22,000.
How many? 20?
Cap of 20? Is there a second to that amendment offered by Alderman Mayor? Seconded by Alderman Swanson. On the amendment, ladies and gentlemen, which is a one-year sunset clause to review the efficacy and impact of said ordinance, and no more than 20 residences, or I should say property owners, can participate in the keeping of chickens within that one-year time frame. On that amendment, Alderwoman Burkhart.
Thank you, Mayor. I would support this because I would hope in a year we could come back and perhaps open up to all single-family lots in Geneva if we see that we don't have any of the problems that some people are worried about. So I guess I feel like a one-year trial, like I said, I'd be supportive of it because it would kind of have a time clock that we'd have to examine this issue again and discuss if we want to perhaps make it more open to more people. So, thank you.
Anyone else on the amendment? Alderman Swanson, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Alderwoman Burkhart. My fear here is that we have added so many caveats and made it so restrictive that we're going to end up with no takers because they can't. And because we've now made it 15,000 square feet and we've changed the setback. So I agree with the trial, I think is a great, maybe we should have started with that point as opposed to altering it, because the more restrictive we make it, the less people are going to be able to take advantage. So I love the idea of a trial. I think it would be useful. It's going to be pointless though if we have zero takers because they fail to comply with the new rules. So I would be open to relaxing some of those rules for the trial, but I'm not sure that I would have support on that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. This is on the amendment, ladies and gentlemen, to institute a one-year trial period and no more than 20 property owners can participate in that trial. Sounds like a pharmaceutical company. Alderman Mayor?
Can we, how would we go about it if we were to have the trial period have no amendments to it and just be as staff wrote it? No?
Well, you can withdraw your amendment if you'd like, and the seconder could concur, and then we can discuss the main motion as amended and go from there. Right now, there's 3 amendments on the main motion. This would be number 4. If you choose to withdraw, you can, and the seconder concurs. Then we can go back to discussion regarding the main motion as amended, and perhaps there could be an amendment to literally, Mr. City Attorney, eliminate all amendments thereto, and in other words, just consider it one-year trial run, irrespective of lot size. Is that accurate?
It's something.
Can I get a diagram of that? Because I don't know.
Do you want a Venn diagram or
do I
something?
withdraw them?
Mr. Sandak is double checking, but you can certainly repeal your amendment if you'd like. That's not an issue.
Yeah, she can withdraw hers.
You can withdraw it?
Yeah.
If you withdraw it, then we just go back to the main motion as amended 3 times. That might be the easiest path, I think.
Okay, so I'll withdraw my amendment, but I think that the one that's problematic is the lot size amendment.
Okay, so the amendment's been withdrawn. Alderman, who seconded it? Alderman Swansea, you concur?
I'll look at that.
Okay.
Okay, but 6 people agreed with it. They don't count?
6 people agreed with, we hadn't taken a vote on that amendment yet.
Yeah, we did. The 10-foot setback?
No. Alderman Mayor was asking for a trial period.
Sorry, got confused.
That's okay.
You ever tired, you get soft.
You've got to find something to do during the day,
Yeah.
man. So you've got to. Watching the Sox game is just not stimulating.
It's not doing it.
We're back to the main motion as amended 3 times, ladies and gentlemen, just for clarity. The 3 amendments which have been agreed to is to require a minimum 15,000 square foot property to allow for the keeping of chickens, to increase the side yard setback from 5 feet to 10 feet, and to strike all language within the draft ordinance that states, quote, "or fence," end quote. In other words, chickens must be kept in a pen or coop. So, with that, any questions for either the city attorney, or I'm happy to deflect anything that's asked. Alderwoman Burghardt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I've lost track. Why did we take away the test year?
We have not, we didn't vote on it. It was taken away because Alderman Mayor, I believe it was Alderman Mayor, asked if we could recommend the test year, but
Back to the original motion? Back to the original motion.
and eliminate all other amendments there too. But you couldn't do both at the same time. So to withdraw that motion, that original amendment, now the floor is clear for any amendments to the main motion with the 3 amendments attached.
So one of us needs to make that motion.
And I believe that's accurate, yes. It seems kind of, apparently.
So I'd make a motion to go back to the original language as presented tonight at, in our packet and overturn or whatever we need to do to the 3 amendments that were made.
No,
We can't overturn.
Oh,
No.
sorry,
fair,
just go,
So,
I think what you're
Do a
recommending
trial
is,
period.
yeah, just
yeah, recommending a 1-year trial period
into 20.
with a maximum of 20
but we
property.
had that. Did we have that motion and we took it off the table?
Fire away.
if I may, I think what was trying to be accomplished was to go back to the original ordinance as presented for a trial period.
Right.
Period. No limit on permits, no, just what the original, I believe that's what we were trying to do.
It's my interpretation, ladies and gentlemen, that we were going to return to the original document with the caveat of 1-year trial period, maximum 20 property owners, as Alderwoman Ruby described.
Okay, so,
And that works as well. In doing so, we, in effect, disregard the amendments made to the document? Or do we want
I don't think you can do that.
to, okay,
I think you have 3 amendments that have passed. If the authors of those amendments and their seconds wish to withdraw them, that would be permitted. If they do not, the next motion to amend has these 3 items already appended.
okay. So,
There isn't a motion to overrule or anything like that.
the chair will ask Alderman Kilburg and Alderman Maladra, who recommended and received support of the 15,000 square foot minimum lot size. Do you wish to?
They can do that.
Do you wish to withdraw, or, yeah,
No.
or what? Go for it.
I guess my concern is because you've taken 3 votes on those amendments and they've either passed, they've passed. Now it's, take a vote on that, and if you want to make a trial period, you would have to vote against this amendment, this motion as amended, and then somebody would then make a motion from there. In other words, you have to, I think you have to dispense
We
with
have to
what's on the
dispose
table.
of the current motion as amended on the floor. Okay. That does not require, just for clarification from Mr. Sandak, a motion to reconsider
Nope,
or anything else. Okay, got it.
up or down.
Up or down, got it, okay. So is everyone clear on that?
Yeah, we speak to
I'm not sure I am.
So if,
Yeah.
if it fails, then it would, in a normal circumstance, it would just be dead. But we're going, Okay. So if it fails, then we go back to the original motion? Tonight? And how do we do that?
And then we can,
How does that work?
That's why I asked the question of whether or not that language has to be the motion to reconsider. That's what I'm trying to clarify.
Because normally, once a motion is voted down, it's done, or voted up or down, either.
Voted down as amended. Do I think you could make a motion for the base motion on its own or as newly amended? You could. It's entirely different motions. They're different subjects.
But what was the point of the amendments then?
To pass or, to add or delete from
Right,
the...
so we had a thing that we came in with, and then
Right.
it got molded and shaped into something different.
Right.
And once we vote that down, there is nothing else. It has to come back as a new
And the-
issue at another day.
but the trial period can't be considered separately?
Can't do a reconsider?
Cannot?
No.
It has to be a different date?
Well, you're reconsidering the substance of something that's been, and you want to change it.
Right.
You're not reconsidering what you just
So-
voted on.
Right, so I have a question. So can we continue to vote on the 1-year trial and the 20 permit cap?
As an amendment?
Yeah, as our
Sure.
fourth amendment, yeah, and then go from there. So my thinking is, assuming this passes, I feel everyone is relatively supportive. My thinking is, 6 months from now, if we don't have anybody applying for a permit, then we can bring it back to the table and talk about it again. And get rid of some of our amendments, revise it at that point in time. My vote would be to give this a shot with the Fourth Amendment and just see what happens, go from there.
It's 2/3, though.
Of holding office or president? I believe Alderman Ruby is asking for an amendment of the 1-year trial period on 20 properties?
Yes,
Okay.
so, yep, exactly.
Is there a second to that amendment? Seconded by Alderwoman Burkhart. On the amendment, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Kilbert?
How'd we arrive at 20? It just seems like a pretty large number for a trial. I mean, I'm saying, I don't know if there's even 20 permits that are issued between St. Charles and Batavia currently. I'm just saying, the thing is if you decide that we want to move away from this at some point in time, if you got 20 people, and maybe it'll be successful. But I'm just saying, 20 is a pretty large group to have a sampling with. I just think that if you're going to set up a trial, I think it should be somewhat more manageable. I just think 20 is a pretty large number. And so what if we don't get 20? If we don't get enough to do the trial, does that invalidate the trial because statistically we don't have a broad enough sampling of the trial that we established?
Well, it's my understanding the amendment was a maximum of 20, so,
Yeah, I would say that it's just to gauge interest. It's just to prevent, 100 people from getting a permit and having 100 homes with chickens. I don't think it matters if we get 1 or 20. It's just something new, and it's just to see what happens.
Alderman Kilberg still has the floor. Okay. Anyone else on the amendment as offered by Alderwoman Ruby and seconded by Alderwoman Burkhart? Alderman Mayor, do you have anything you'd like to add, question-wise or comment-wise, to the amendment?
No, I think I'm done. It is disappointing though, because I think most yards in Geneva are 0.25 acres. So most of the people that want to do this are not going to be able to do it.
Let's, on the amendment though, let's take that vote, if no one objects, and then I'd like to make a statement following that vote. So on the amendment, Mr. Clerk, the amendment is a 1-year trial period with a maximum of 20 property owners taking place, and that the impact, if you will, success will be reviewed after that 1-year period.
Mayor?
Aye.
Swanson?
Aye.
Burkhart?
Aye.
Ruby?
Aye.
Caven?
Nay.
Kilberg?
Nay.
Kasserag?
Nay.
Maladra?
Nay.
That's a tie.
It's a 4-4. I will vote nay. We're back to the main motion as amended thrice. I do have one statement to make, ladies and gentlemen. City Attorney Sandak advised me that because this is a committee of the whole meeting, and forgive me for not recognizing this earlier, the option we always have at a committee of the whole meeting is to remand this matter back to staff for additional, quote, research. It's not a requirement, but it's certainly an option. That would help eliminate some of the confusion regarding whether we can advance something without the amendments, kill it, whatever the case might be. So that's just for your edification and mine. So. Alderwoman Burkhart.
So should I make a motion to that effect?
Motion would not be, well, yes, a motion would be a good idea, so it's.
A motion to
Alderman-
remand it?
One minute, Alderman Mayor, Alderwoman Burkhart has the floor. If it's a motion to direct staff to.
Yes, that's exactly. I was going to make a motion to remand this back to staff so that when we see it again, we'll see it with all the amendments. And I'd appreciate some research on exactly how many lots this would actually, how many homeowners would actually even be eligible for this with these restrictions. So that's my motion to, yes, remand it back to staff. Thank you.
And if I may just clarify, so you said with all amendments, so as you've amended it this evening, you want to see what that looks like?
Yes, I mean,
Okay.
I don't think, I'd rather not because I don't support the amendments, but I don't think I can do that
The three amendments,
wholeheartedly.
yep, exactly.
Thank you.
Is there a second to Alderwoman Burkhart's amendment, or excuse me, motion?
I
Seconded
second
by
that. Mayor.
Alderwoman Ruby. Questions on the motion? Alderman Mayor?
Nope.
Anyone else? Mr. McCready, is there anyone joining us who have?
Caven.
Oh, Alderman Caven, excuse me, sir, then Kasserag?
Sorry, I'm not, we've been talking about this for a long time. I'm not meaning to be argumentative, but if we're remanding this back to staff, they're just gonna put in the 3 amendments that we've talked about for 2.5 hours? I mean, I feel like I know what these, I feel like I know what these amendments are. If it's just gonna be to put it into this, or is there gonna be some other information provided when we come back again? Yeah, I mean, Tara, if you-
I asked,
absolutely.
I have no idea how many people have 15,000 square foot lots. I don't think a lot, honestly, in Geneva. So I would love to hear that, and I'd love all of us to know that when we're voting on this, to decide what we're saying X percentage of Geneva residents can do and what, I think that would be helpful.
Okay, so there will be additional information other than just what's added in that, of the 3 amendments. There is supposed to be something else.
What I heard is just that.
Oh, okay.
How many homes are 15,000
And above.
and above?
Thank you.
Alderman Kasserag.
I just want to, I feel bad, Tara, but I'm going to borrow your words that we are really wasting not wasting, we're expending a lot of time, staff's time on this issue. You had said that earlier, and
No, I was.
Oh,
I
sorry,
didn't
that was
say
Becky? Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, my God.
Becky said that.
Wait, I am
Did I
Tara
just pull a
Burkhart.
Burns?
This is Becky Ruby. The woman on the phone is Amy Mayer. We are 3 women. We are not the same. Oh, my gosh, you guys. Jeez.
Becky said that, Alderman Ruby. And I just, you know, they've done it before in the past. They did it now. I just feel like I don't know, from my point of view, there's nothing that's gonna come back from staff, frankly, that's gonna change my opinion on this issue. So, that's all I wanna say. Sorry. And I also wanna express my apologies too. Tara?
You're fine, Alderman Maladra.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah, that,
On the motion, ladies and gentlemen, anyone else wish to address that? Mr. Clerk, whenever you're ready, sir.
I'm always ready.
Okay.
Burkhart,
Aye.
Ruby,
Aye.
Caven,
Nay.
Kilberg. Nay. Kasserag,
Nay.
Maladra,
nay.
Mayor,
Mayor, aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
We have a 4-4
Yep,
tie.
and I vote nay on the motion. We're back to the main motion as amended, ladies and gentlemen. As amended thrice. The amendment the motion as amended can yet be amended should someone so choose. That could include amending what's already been approved to. That could include amending some other element of the document. Or we can simply have a vote up or down on the document as amended.
I call the question on the motion with the amendments as currently pending on the table.
Very well, the question's been called. The question being called does not require a second. Therefore, whenever the clerk, is everyone clear on what the motion is as amended? Okay?
No, I'm not. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
The
I
main
don't
motion-
understand what
The
this
main motion
motion
as
is.
amended, Alderman Mayor, is to allow an ordinance to permit the keeping of chickens as described in the staff document with the following three amendments. Those permitted to keep chickens must have property of at least 15,000 square feet. The side yard setback on those properties of at least 15,000 square feet will be increased from 5 feet to 10 feet. And within the document, those properties of at least 15,000 square feet must keep all said chickens in either a pen or a coop, with all language related to and/or a fenced-in yard being eliminated from the document. There ain't no free-range chickens. That's what we're saying. Ms. Dawkins, anything? Everyone clear? Mr. Clerk, whenever you're ready, sir.
Ruby,
Aye.
Caven,
Nay.
Kilberg. Nay. Kasserag,
Nay.
Maladra,
Nay.
Mayor.
Aye. Mayor,
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
Mayor, aye.
Aye, thank you. Swanson,
Aye.
Burkhart.
Aye.
4-4 again.
Yep, and I will, let me offer this little statement here. I think the fact that we've spoken for now, hour and 45 minutes on an issue that I think a lot of people are passionate about, certainly interested in, but I think we have done a Simone Biles version, if you will, of the twisties on this thing. And I think it speaks to me that there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of nervousness. Alderman Kilberg's comments, I thought were head-on. Alderman Kasserag, nobody I've spoken to says they're ready for this. Alderman Caven brought up some good points as well. Alderman Ruby, Alderwoman Ruby, what about what happens to the chickens when they're expected lifetime, et cetera? It strikes me as something that we're trying to fit in, but we're not terribly married to one way or another. And based on that, and based on the overarching consideration that virtually everybody in this room has said, is our code enforcement officer, our building department, our police officers, who will likely receive the first calls, are far too busy to deal with something like this. So regrettably, and I'm certain I'll receive lots of emails because this is the second time I've broken a tie, I will vote no on this. With that, therefore, with 5 in the negative, 4 in the affirmative, the motion fails. Any public comment?
No one raising their hands at this time.
Okay. Any new business? Motion to adjourn is in order.
So moved. Motion to adjourn.
Alderwoman Burkhart makes the motion.
Or is it Alderman Ruby?
I don't know. This is like, never mind. All in favor of adjourning, ladies and gentlemen, please say
take a-
yes. Roll call vote since Alderman Mayor is joining us remotely.
Okay, Burkhart,
Aye.
Ruby,
Aye.
Caven,
Aye.
Gilberg,
Aye.
Ostrog,
Aye.
Maladra,
Aye.
Mayor,
Mayor, aye.
Swanson.
Aye.